different, and I think it will be quite surprising to people, a new perspective on the moon.
When might we see that?
Because I'm getting old, I'm trying to finish my autobiography first, and then the moon book second. So I don't know. Realistically, probably if we're lucky, in spring of next year.
Thank you.
Yeah. I've written 3 moon books, and the lunar photo of the day for 3,000 and some odd days, and the sky and telescope for 21 years. It's just amazing to me that I keep thinking of things to say about the moon.
Well, I enjoy seeing them.
Well, great. Thank you. Alberto, in Argentina, do you have many other people besides yourself interested in the moon?
Yeah, we are a small group of lovers of the moon, and increasingly during the time. But yes, and in the Lunar Observer, we have a substantial degree of Latin American observers. Yes, yes.
Excellent.
Yes. In fact, we have a small group, and we call it Sociedad Lunar, Lunar Society, Argentina. A very small group, but dedicated.
And there's a nice group in Brazil also that I had a chance to meet some of a couple of years ago. So the moon is, obviously the most prominent item in the night sky. So it should reasonably and continually, I think, be everybody's favorite night sky object.
Yes, and it's like seeing another world, but with a privileged perspective, no? Because the other planets are also great, but the moon is like you are in a balcony seeing another world, and also for those who have no scientific background, I think the moon has provide the possibility of knowing things like geology and cartography, and to apply these things, even if you have no scientific background. This is very interesting. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do a lot of outreach with my astronomy clubs, and we always make sure the moon is at least, quarter, and I always keep the whole moon in the eyepiece under low power, 50 power. So, and it's amazing, people see it with a twist polarizing filter so it doesn't hurt their eyes, and then they jump back, oh wow. I love people's reactions when they first see the moon, and then I tell them that the darker, grayer areas are extinct volcanic flows, and they're like, really, it's basalt? And they're just amazed. They can't believe when they first see the moon. So I know what you mean. When you see it visually, it has a different feeling than just seeing a beautiful picture that you took by aligning and stacking the images.
Right.
It is, plus you're outside, it's social, you're with your telescope, you know what I mean? You're in the field. It's a whole different experience. It's like a total solar eclipse. You can see a video of it, but if you actually see one, it's a totally different experience. Yeah.
When we do outreach in our group there, I always, when we have the moon on there, I use a low enough power, as you said, Gregory, there about so that you get the whole moon in it, even if it's on a crescent or something. Because I found that a lot of the people, the other guys in our group, they will put in with a higher power on it, so it's
Right.
clipping edges off. Yes, it's
Right.
nice and interesting to see these, but I found
Yeah.
on the whole, most people, like for sidewalk astronomy or something like this,
Yeah.
they like to see the whole thing.
Right.
So
Plus,
I don't-
they've never
when I-
seen they've never seen the moon through a telescope either. So
Right.
it's good to see the whole moon instead of a little piece, just a few interesting
so
craters.
When
Yeah.
I go out for that, I only take one eyepiece with me. I only take the one that will show the whole moon. I will have no other eyepieces with me, so I will not be tempted.
Yeah, I do the exact same thing, John. I do the exact same thing. I only have one low power eyepiece, and that's all I use. Yep.
That's for outreach, because even when I do solar
Right,
with a filter over it, I still get the entire sun in
Right,
that
right,
particular eyepiece. So
right,
for that
right.
particular telescope I use for outreaches, I don't keep
Right.
anything but that one eyepiece in it. I
Right,
won't put any on.
If there's planets out, I'll bring a higher power one so I can
Right.
zoom in on Saturn so I can see the rings better and all that. But for the moon, no, I always make sure they see the full moon, the full disk of the moon. Yeah,
Right.
that's the best way to do it, really, for someone that's never seen the moon. You know?
I live in Main Street, 2 blocks from downtown in my small town, 27,000 people population. I often take my telescope out into the front sidewalk and look at the moon when it's on the east side in the eastern
Yeah.
sky. And people stop by and look. And one of the things I enjoy that, everybody who's had sidewalk astronomy experiences enjoys the people seeing it for the first time
Yeah.
and how amazed they are. But one of the things I find that I don't quite know how I feel about is so many people look through and then they grab their camera, their cell phone, and they never look through the eyepiece again. They just look at their camera.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And
One
I
thing
They
think
want to get that
when they have a
picture.
picture to take home and show their friends, that's
Yeah.
wonderful. But I still would like them to look at the moon a little bit more.
Well, one of the guys we have does, he has like a 10-inch Dob, and he puts the little holder on there for cell phones.
Yeah.
And he has it on there like for the moon, and he'll put it on there, and he gets everything set for it, and then tells the people there, you hit the button to take the pictures, therefore you can say you took this picture. And they really like that idea that they took this astrophotography picture.
Yeah.
Yeah. Somebody commented today that they'd really prefer to be giving the talk live with people sitting right out there. But I got to admit, I really enjoy seeing Rick Hill, who I haven't seen for probably 20 years. There he is. And Tony yesterday, and people that I've not met before, but have seen their names before. So I think that Zoom and the internet is far, far more exciting and useful than it is destroying society. There's some of that in it too, but it's wonderful to meet people, see folks you don't know or don't know very often.
It's pulling a lot of us together.
I saw Dolores's name on there today. I don't know if she's hiding someplace down.
Yes, I am in the black bar.
There you go. Hi, Dolores.
Hi there. Good to see you. Looking forward to your talk.
Me too. I have to figure out what I'm going to say.
Always useful.
Tim, did you get my message?
No, I didn't.
No, Tim.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
Yeah, it's 4 o'clock my time, 7 o'clock. You people on the right coast. So I think we'll get started. Welcome everybody. I'm gonna ask everybody, please go on mute before we get started. I want to welcome you to this evening, afternoons, wherever you might be in the world, presentation. Looking forward to a great keynote speech by Chuck Wood. We're going to start off the festivities with a few remarks from the executive director of the ALPO, Carl Hergenrother. Carl?
Thanks, Tim. I don't know if I'm going to be able to talk for 10 minutes or so, but I'll see what I can do.
Think of it like a comment section report.
You told me to shorten those, so I've been trying to be. So I'd like to thank everyone who attended. It's been a great conference. Thank all the presenters. everyone who's here listening live in real time throughout the meeting, everyone who's going to listen on YouTube, either listening on YouTube now or going to be listening on YouTube for, I don't know, centuries maybe. I don't know how long this stuff is going to be up there on the internet. Hello from the past. The ALPO is going strong. Planetary astronomy, of course, is going strong. There's always been an interest in the planets. It was kind of amazing hearing the discussion earlier about the moon and just the visual impact of observing the moon with your eye. I mean, that's something that I kind of, on the comet side, I sit in both worlds where I do imaging, but I also do visual stuff. And they both have pros and cons, but it's really nice and satisfying to know that that photon actually hit my personal eyeball and was registered and processed in my own brain. Definitely there are things you can't necessarily see without, CCD images. I'm not going to see a 20th magnitude comet visually, though I've actually have looked through a 2-meter telescope, so I shouldn't say that. I've gotten close. But there is something nice about looking and seeing things visually and having that kind of experience. But one thing I want to kind of ask from everyone here, the ALPO is getting older. Not just, it's our 75th anniversary, but you look around and we're kind of a certain demographic. And we really do need to almost evangelize what the ALPO does, as well as planetary astronomy, and try to get younger people involved, because all of us aren't going to be here forever. And we know there are lots of people out there observing. You look on Facebook, Pinterest, all the various social media, Cloudy Nights, which is the forum I'm always on. I mean, there's probably thousands of people on Cloudy Nights submitting images every day of various things in space. And a lot of it is solar system stuff. And if we can just kind of corral some of them into the ALPO, so we can kind of, in a way, spread our knowledge and spread our enjoyment of solar system astronomy, that would be great. And, a lot of us kind of observe our own particular objects. I'm basically a comet guy. I do look at the planets, I do look at the moon, but I don't do it in any serious way. I'm basically comets and almost always comets. But one thing I'm going to try to do is contribute to some of the other sections. I'm really intrigued by the Mercury stuff, not just the fact that Mercury is a comet. Let's be honest, everything's technically a comet in space. Everything outgasses. If you were up in space, you'd outgas and have a tail for a little while at least. I mean, we would all be comets if we were up there.
I don't even have to be in space for that.
That's
Yeah.
very true.
I outgassed it.
But yeah, I'm really interested in, delving maybe into Mercury, the remote planets. That's very similar to what I do with photometry. So maybe all of us should also think about, seeing if we can't observe some other objects that we don't usually observe and contribute to some sections that we don't routinely contribute to. And with that, I just want to close up. And again, thank everyone who's here. Thank all the presenters. Thank everyone who's helped the ALPO throughout the years and currently helping the ALPO. Thank our wonderful speaker, Chuck, in advance for his talk. Thank Jerry and everyone at Explore Scientific for the door prizes. And of course, a big round of applause for mainly Tim, who yet again pulled together a wonderful virtual meeting here. And with that, I will hand it back to Tim.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the kind words. And I want to echo what Carl said too, that this could not have been successful without all of you and our speakers and everybody. So I want to thank you all for participating in this conference. We currently have 35 people on Zoom and 7 people on our YouTube channel watching at this current time. Carl, there was a question before you came on about next year's conference, and I don't know if you want to address that at all, how we're going to do it, what type of thing you're looking at.
Yeah, so we had this discussion at yesterday's board meeting, and it sounds like the consensus was that this format seems to be working. If we were to meet in person, though, it'd be great to see people, face to face. Historically, we'd only get an attendance of maybe a dozen or so people. Now, I'm sure nowadays things have changed. We can do kind of a hybrid approach where we meet in person and we do virtually. But I think for now, I think we're going to continue with this format. I really do feel like it's working.
Great, thank you. All right, let me share my screen here real quick. All right. One of my fun jobs in the ALPO is is running the Walter H. Haas Observers Award Committee. I've done this for a few years now, and it's a lot of fun. It really is. This year's recipient was unable to be here. He's moving right now, and internet's not good where he's at right now. So I called him up on Zoom a couple days ago, and I presented the award to him, and I recorded it, and I'd like to play that for everybody now.
Oh, you're muted, Tim. Or at least no sounds coming through.
Oh, really? Let's try that
Yeah.
again.
You'll need to reshare with audio enabled.
It should be working. Hang on. Okay. Anything?
No.
Bummer.
Yeah, you have to unshare and then reshare, and there's a little checkbox on the left-hand side and it says, something to do with sound.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
I closed it.
Play computer sound or something like that.
All right, hang on.
Yeah, if you click on the microphone, I believe maybe same as system might work. Because that's what I see online.
It seems like it's not muted. Otherwise, you see a crossbar across sound.
Share sound. There it is. Boom. Got it. All right. Thank you. Scott's done this a few more times than I have, I think. Okay. All right. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you hear it. All right. We are having a little meeting with one of our ALPO members today. And one of my jobs with the Association of Lunar Planetariums is a really nice job. I'm the coordinator of the Walter Haas Observers Award. And it's given out annually to an amateur astronomer for excellence in observational solar system astronomy. This award is named after Walter Haas, the founder and original executive director, was established in 1985. The award itself consists of an engraved plaque, and the awardee also receives 2-year membership, complimentary membership to the ALPO. This year's Walter Haas committee, I was very lucky to have some very great people working with me this year. It comprised of myself, Ken Poshedley, Dolores Hill, Wayne Bailey, Carl Hergenrother, Richard Schmuty, and Julius Benton. And I really want to thank them for their participation with this award. But this year, the award goes to a longtime ALPO member, lunar and planetary astronomer, and recent recipient of the Overbeck Medal by the Astronomical Society of Southern Africa. That's pretty impressive. For his outstanding work in imaging and science and astronomical research, I'm proud to present the award this year to Clyde Foster. Congratulations, Clyde. I'm proud to present the award this year to Clyde Foster. Congratulations, Clyde.
Sure. I'm actually totally blown away, Tim. This is something that is incredibly special to me. I had some communication from Matt just last week while we were on holiday, and I had a little bit of a hint, and I wasn't sure about whether there were other observers awards, but I'm obviously very aware of the Walter H. Haas Observers Award. And to me, that's one of the pinnacles of planetary observing, is to receive this award. And I'm incredibly honored to receive this. This is something incredibly special for me.
Well, looking at your years of work in the organization and outside of our own organization, it's pretty darn impressive, and this is well deserved. And I got to say, the voting was pretty much unanimous too.
Sure, Tim. That's very, very special, and thank you for that. I must maybe mention too. I don't have the full list of the Walter Haas awardees or recipients. And I would appreciate if you could maybe send me that, Tim.
We'll do
But,
that.
two I will mention. Damien Peach was a major influence and remains to be a major influence in my planetary imaging. Both him and Chris Go in the Philippines were two of the guys that really inspired me in my earlier years, and as I say, I still continue to do so. But I have to make mention of Don Parker. I only started my serious planetary imaging in 2014, and I think it was only about 6 months after I'd started, I was putting out images of Mars daily. Most of them were pretty horrendous, and I was still on a serious learning curve, and I was totally blown away when I got an email drop into my inbox from Don. And basically, he was saying, look, Clyde, he's delighted that I've taken up planetary imaging in such a serious way, and the level of commitment I was showing and the contribution I was making, even in those days. And that had such an amazing impact on me. And of course, I'm fully aware that Don and Damien are both recipients of the Walter Haas Award. So just even those two, to be in their company is incredibly special for me.
Well, you deserve to be in their company with the work you've done. Congratulations.
No, super, Tim. That's great.
Great. Well, that's it for now, and we're going to head on back to the conference. All right. Let's give them a big round of applause, okay? That's really well deserved. All right. The second award we're giving out today is the Mike Reynolds Award. Now, a lot of us knew Mike. Losing him was very hard for this organization. Mike was an educator. He was an astronaut candidate for the teacher program. He was on television a lot, promoting astronomy and astronomical events. He was an eclipse chaser. We all know him. And he was also a really good friend. And I was flabbergasted when I was asked to be on the board of directors for the ALPO to take his place. And those are some huge, huge shoes that I feel like I'm filling. And it's tough. And I'm just trying to live up to what Mike brought to the organization. The Mike Reynolds Award was established in 2020. The Mike Reynolds Astronomy Award is presented to an individual for a significant contribution to popularizing astronomy, which may include a lifetime achievement. It recognizes outstanding contributions to public understanding and appreciation of astronomy. The award does not need to be presented annually. We didn't give one out last year. We're giving one out this year. Anyone within the ALPO can nominate anybody for the award. The final decision is made up by the ALP Board of Directors, and the award consists of a plaque and a monetary reward of up to $250. The 2022 Mike Reynolds Award goes to an individual that we have all probably met sometime in our life. He's a designer and marketer of astronomical equipment. He's a supporter of educational outreach in astronomy and space exploration, a popularizer of amateur astronomy. Since 1980, he has marketed and sold amateur astronomy equipment, as well produced astronomy-themed events and presentations to a broad audience. Each of us probably owns one or more pieces of equipment that he has designed or made personally. In November 2000, Carolyn Shoemaker and David Levy named an asteroid after him. In 2001, he received the Clifford W. Holmes Award at the 32nd Annual RTMC. In 2001-2002, he received the International Dark Sky Association Executive Directors Award, a recognition for the enthusiastic efforts in the pursuit of the promotion of dark skies. In 2008, he was presented with the Astronomical League's Award in grateful appreciation for outstanding dedication to amateur astronomy community. In 2011, our TMC honored him with the G. Bruce Blair Medal of Astronomy Outreach. And now I just feel like we're just piling on, but it's my honor to present the 2022 Mike Reynolds Award to Scott Roberts.
Wow. I did not expect this, guys. This is a huge honor, but it's also deeply personal because Mike Reynolds and I consider to be best friends. And so it's, I don't know what to say because, you know, the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers is in my mind, a very venerable organization. You know, I know that you guys are celebrating your 75th anniversary, and it's you know, I've been able to make friends with some of you, with many of you there. This is I found this photograph of me with Don Parker and Walter Haas at the 2008 Astronomical League conference, and this is where I introduced the company Explore Scientific. You know, and when I read about the Astronomical League, or excuse me, the ALPO, you know, you describe yourselves as watchdogs of the solar system, and it's true. You know, having also been very good friends with Don Parker. I wish I had known Walter Haas better. I met him maybe half a dozen times, but you know, watching Don Parker actually work and collect data and submit data and interact with the worldwide astronomical community was really amazing. And you know, if you wanted to know the weather on Mars, you look no further than to have to go to Don Parker. But of course, that also meant that you had to go no further than to find the Mars section of the ALPO, and you guys carry that torch, and it is amazing what you do. And I think that you know, with the right exposure, you will be able to track many more of those thousands of people that have turned on to astronomy, because we're going back to the moon. We will put boots on Mars, and who wouldn't want to you know, observe Mars through a telescope knowing that humans are there? You know, I remember using this little telescope in 1970 to look at the moon and try to find, you know, the area where Apollo 11 had landed. And so I really want to thank you guys. This is over the top, and I'm a little speechless. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. And I'd like to add that Scott, you know, you've got many trophies, many plaques, and they tend to say in appreciation and so forth. But we feel, Jim Melka, could you please mute your screen there? I wanted to say that we wanted to be specific with your award, and that's why it is as detailed as it is. So I'm going to, for those who didn't get a chance to read all of the text, to Scott W. Roberts, in appreciation and recognition of your tireless and extensive history with astronomical equipment and work to provide the tools and guidance necessary to elevate the skill levels of beginner and amateur astronomers worldwide, including the founding of the Astronomy Outreach Network in 2000 and other outreach events. The multitude of your activities serves as an example to all of the good work that can still be done for beginner and amateur astronomers everywhere. So when people see this on your wall, they'll know why you got it. Congratulations.
Thank you, Ken. Thank you. I will proudly display it. Thank you very much.
You have always been there. Any conference I've ever been to, you're normally there, and you're normally giving away stuff.
I do my best.
And you've supported this community for as long as I know. And
Well, here's my take on it. You know, this community embraced me when I first got into it in about 1980, and you cannot find a more how do I say it? I mean, just a better community of people. I think all of you know what I'm talking about. You know, I mean, just one instance of this is the sharing aspect that amateur astronomers do. You know, I come from a professional photography background. Professional photographers do not give up their secrets, okay? Amateur astronomers do. They will tell you everything that they know, okay? And they'll help you do it. And so that's just one aspect. Another, you can go to a star party, I don't know, hundreds of thousands of dollars or millions of dollars of equipment's out there on the field. You rarely hear of anything go missing. Okay, that is also another just another aspect. But we all want to share the experience. We all want to see somebody wake up when they look through the eyepiece and see craters on the moon for the first time, or the rings of Saturn for the first time, or to realize they're on another planet flying through space for the first time. You know, it's an awakening. And you know, that's a tipping point that is just, it's the juice for me. It really is. But I feel that because the community has done so much for me and has allowed me to make a living being involved, that I absolutely have a responsibility to support the astronomy community in every way that I can.
Thank you.
So, thank you.
Yeah, Scott, I always remember seeing you at the NAEP, Northeast Astronomy Forum.
Yes.
And I always see you there, and almost every time that you were there. And I remember, I don't know if you remember me chat with you.
I remember your face.
Yeah,
I remember your
okay.
face. I'm very good on faces, so.
Yeah, and it hasn't been the last 2 years. It hasn't been the forum up there because of COVID.
Right.
But, I don't know about next year. I don't know what's going to be meet in person or something. You know,
I think they will. I think they will be back next year. You know, it has been very tough on them. They didn't do it this last year. They were going to, but there was so many international exhibitors that could not show up. You know, because, you know, in some countries there is a zero tolerance type of situation. For instance, if we had an exhibitor from China, they could come into the United States, but when they went back, they had to be locked down in a government hotel in quarantine for at least 2 weeks. You know, so that made it very tough to do this kind of thing. So that was the reason why they pushed off Northeast Astronomy Forum one more year. But I think you'll come back as a strong event, and you know, so it's going to be good. I think that the points that you guys made about being on Zoom and doing live broadcasts like this is very important. Can you imagine if we'd been doing this for the last 15 or 20 years? Okay, how much more advanced and comfortable we would be in doing these. But you're reaching a worldwide audience right now. People from around the world will watch this conference that you're giving right now. And, you know, it's just a matter of getting some people involved that are good at working with social media. It's a great platform for the community, and you know, to spread your word, and to get new people involved in the ALPO. And I will make a commitment right here with ALPO. If there is, you know, if there's anything that you would like for me to do, as far as maybe being an advisor or something like that, to help the ALPO increase membership, to increase its reach around the world, I'm very happy to do that. And You know, we did 100. We just passed 100 global star parties where we had astronomers from around the world come on weekly, and we broadcast to a global audience. It's been a lot of fun. It's inspired me to work with other organizations to help them do virtual events like this one, or hybrid events, which is, I'm actually leaving Tuesday to go to the Alcon event in Albuquerque, and that will be a hybrid event. I'm going to have the honor to live interview Harrison Schmitt, you know, the last guy on the moon. So that's the technology that we have, and that's nearly free, is just amazing. And I'm glad that the ALPO is embracing it.
Well, Scott, I really want to thank you. And that was, the plaque is just a little token of how we feel about you and how the community is.
I'm flabbergasted, really, guys.
Oh.
And, you know, the guys in the ALPO, I mean, you guys are scientists, you know, you're the very serious guys. And you know, I certainly can follow it. I can, you know, I've participated in it a little bit. I love to support it. But you know, you guys are the real experts. And, you know, I know that the American Astronomical Society, I was on a advisory board for a little while last year, and I know that they're going to be doing more pro-am projects, and I hopefully that involves more, you know, planetary, you know, pro-am work as well. You know, we've got, I don't know, like 24 or 25 planetary missions out there right now, you know, so, and, you know, a new era with Jay West. And, you know, I know that the ALPO is big on exoplanet work, especially with the amateur astronomers. We helped support an observatory with Jerry Hubble, who's, I believe, a member of ALPO, and he used a diffuser. He was reading about this diffuser. It was being used on, like, I don't know, 8-meter telescopes, and how the diffuser would actually improve the signal to noise relationship for you know, magnitude detection of exoplanets. And you know, it was I said, okay, I'll buy you the filter, let's put it together. And we put together a live program, and our first shot right out of the bag, he gets I think it was hat P16, and he shows the curve on, I mean, done live. I mean, I've never for a sales guy to work out a live demonstration where things just didn't blow up in your face. Okay, that was pretty amazing. So I think there are no limits to what amateur astronomers can do, and you know, and we're in the golden age of astronomy. So, you know, more power to all of you, and congratulations on your 75th anniversary.
No, thank you very much. Thank you very much. And I want to apologize to you, Scott, having you come on early, because we're going to do the door prizes after Chuck's talk.
Okay.
Scott called me earlier and said, "What time do you want me on?" I was, just log on at 7.
Okay. All right. So
we're going to do the door prizes after Chuck. All right.
Okay. Thank you. I'm sorry to burn up the airways here.
Hey, no worries. No worries.
Thank you so much, guys. That was very kind. Very,
all right. Now I'm going to turn it over to Ken Pashedley, and he's going to introduce our speaker this evening.
Thank you. Tonight, the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers is proud to feature Charles Chuck Wood as our keynote speaker. Chuck is a professional planetary scientist who has long studied the moon, Earth, and other planets and satellites in our solar system. Like many of us, Chuck got into astronomy at an early age. In his case, he was first fascinated by the moon since witnessing an eclipse in the 5th grade. From the beginning of the space age in the late 50s, he followed American and Russian failures and occasional successes to rise from Earth into space, with the moon as the ultimate destination. Chuck has written 3 books about the moon and is now working on a 4th. His Lunar Photo of the Day, LPOD, website is in its 18th year, and now plays daily reruns of ALPOD's, or what I call ALPOD's first 11 years. The Moon Wiki, the-moon.us/ is about 15 years old, and his Sky and Telescope columns started in 1999. Hard to believe that's over 20 years ago. For the last decade, Chuck has been chair of the International Astronomical Union's Task Group for Lunar Nomenclature. His fascination with the moon is renewed every time he observes it with one of his 8 small telescopes. As for his keynote talk this evening, Chuck will describe how basins, the biggest lunar landforms, influence much of what we observe on his favorite telescopic world. As he says, all in all, many amateurs have overlooked basins while searching for small details. Now is the time to see the really big picture. So at this time, I turn it over to Chuck Wood.
Thank you, Ken. Thank everybody for being here. As I look around the folks on the screen, some of you have hair as white as mine. And it may be that your first association with the ALPO was the same as mine. When I was in high school, I wrote a letter to Walter Haas asking him a question about the moon. And he responded on his high school paper, blue-lined paper, right? Answering the question. And I should have kept that. I should have framed it. But it made me realize that there were people out there who were willing to talk and share their knowledge, just like Scott said a few seconds ago. So I've had only small periods of close interaction with the ALPO through my career, but it's always been fun. I hosted I think it was ALPO. I can't actually remember. ALPO and Astronomical League meeting in Tucson in the mid 60s. One of the things I remember about that is that I stepped in the celebratory cake, which happened to have been put on the ground, and I walked right on top of it. So it was a highlight of the meeting, at least for me. Do I just share my screen, or do you put it up to see the slides I have?
You can share your screen.
All right, let me get there. How do I get out of this without losing you entirely? All right.
The little green thing at the bottom of the screen.
Yeah, but I don't I have to, all right, I have to go there, and I don't have it set up yet.
Maybe just have Tim run through them for you.
Yeah, Tim, if you've got them up ready to go, that would be fine.
Did you send them to me?
I did, and since you asked that question, I'll keep looking at mine. I heard people earlier today say next slide, so I thought that's what was happening.
Let me look. I don't remember getting it.
Desktop. Oh, come on. I've been using computers since the late 60s, and every once in a while I know what I'm doing. I don't want that. I don't want this. How do I get back to my screen? Well, I have a bunch of slides, and the first slide shows.
If you do, are you using a PC?
A Mac.
A Mac, okay. So do Command Tab and click through until you see Zoom.
Command what?
Command Tab.
Yeah. Tab.
Yeah, just click through and it'll take you through each one of the programs that you have open, okay?
Okay.
All right, and then go to Zoom, and then you'll see a green button on the bottom. You'll say share screen.
Yeah, well, I don't have it open. I thought you guys were going to have it open, so I didn't put it open. So let me go to this PowerPoint.
Yeah, open the PowerPoint.
Come on.
And then we'll show you how to share that. It's pretty easy.
Yeah. That's not my PowerPoint though. And that's Chrome. That's not what I want. Well, it's not going to PowerPoint. How about if I just move it out of the way and click on it?
Yeah, you can do that.
Do you guys see that?
Not yet. You're not sharing yet. So
right.
Let's go back to Zoom.
Yep.
And you'll see a green button that says share screen. And when you hit that button, you're going to see a bunch of dialog boxes. And one of them is going to be just your PowerPoint. And you're going to
I'm on Zoom, but gosh.
You probably gotta move your arrow all the way down to the bottom to pop up
What?
All right, let me get rid of this thing. How do I get rid of that? And then I click share screen down there.
share screen. Okay, now you're going to see options here. So you need to highlight the PowerPoint one. And then you commit to it and share again, and you'll see what happens there. Or we'll see what happens.
I've been, I can see it on my screen, but I can't get this and the share screen button on at the same time, it seems like.
Are you a Chrome or Microsoft Edge?
Chrome. I mean, I can't, I don't know how to get back to where you guys are.
Can you do a quick email the program to either me or Tim, and we'll run them?
Who is that who's speaking?
Ken.
Yeah, I sent it to you earlier today, both of you.
All right. Let me check.
I didn't get it.
Okay.
Try exit full screen to get down to your menu.
Nope. No, I don't see it in my email.
Huh. All right, so it was, I think I sent it to you on Google Chrome. And
If you want to resend, that's fine too.
yeah, that's what I'm trying to do. It's a 30 megabyte file, so it's compressing ready to send it to you, Ken.
You sent it to Ken? Okay.
Are you using my ALPO address?
Whatever you sent me email on recently is what I'm using. I can't
Right.
see it now, it's hidden.
Okay, whatever. Is it?
It's your ALPO. It's your ALPO one, yeah.
Okay, let's see.
You want me to send it to a different one?
No, I should still get it.
Okay. All right, the message is sent.
Okay. I'm in my folder waiting for it to come down. Ah, there it is. All right. It's all right.
Well, this is crazy. I can hear you, but I can't get back to seeing you. I'm trying to find the Zoom button on the side of my screen.
It's
You
a
can
little
see you, so your Zoom must be on.
it's a little camera icon, a blue camera icon.
But you mean when I see everybody, the gallery of everybody?
Yeah.
I can't see that anymore. I can't find it, even
The
though I
blue-
hear you. That's
the blue-
weird.
Can you see the blue camera icon?
Well, I'm not in Zoom, except I hear you.
No, the blue camera icon is Zoom.
Okay, there it is. There. So I'm back to you. And,
All right.
How you doing, Ken? You got it?
Yeah. Open with. Let's see here. Hold on. I'm trying to get it to open in PowerPoint. Because it's a PPTX. It opens in Google. All right, I will.
I don't understand when I have it open on my screen and I click share screen and it doesn't show me what's on my screen.
Yeah.
I've done
All
this many
Okay.
times. I've given lots of talks on this. I'm sorry I haven't learned how to do it.
You gonna share it, Ken?
Yeah. I've got it open in, I guess it's Google and slideshow. There we go. All right. Let me get back to PowerPoint. Let's see if this works. Okay, how's that?
Voila.
That works.
That's the second slide, but that's great, Ken.
Trying to get to the first one. How's that? Is that
That's the
second?
first, yeah, that's the first one. Thank you.
All
Well,
right.
is somebody, I don't remember who, said for such a long time, amateurs did not look at the large features on the moon. They looked to find the smallest ones. And here's a picture of Mare Serenitatis, which is a very prominent mare on the moon, surrounded by mountains on the west and interesting craters around the edges. And the thing that most amateur astronomers, most astronomers who studied the moon from the 1780s through the 1960s, the thing that most of these people looked at, next slide, Ken. Next, can you get it? Trying to.
There you go.
There you go.
It just
There's this
responds
little
very,
dot-
responds
There's
very
this little
slowly.
dot over here, which is the crater Linnaeus. And here's a great photo from Jim Phillips, who's got the Valentine dome up in the upper left of that insert, and down at the bottom right, surrounded by bright material, is Linnaeus. Linnaeus is the most famous crater of the 19th century, and as I say there, it's a non-event. What happened? Julius Schmidt, the great Schmidt of Athens, he was called, who made the best map of the moon in the 1900s. He announced in the 1860s that Linnaeus, which had been an easy to see 10-kilometer wide crater, disappeared. And there was just this little bright spot that was in its place. And so that was what so many people had been looking for so long. They wanted to find change on the moon. When they looked at the big craters, other than all the little pits on the floor of Plato, most astronomers saw no change, but there was this vast interest in finding and documenting change on the moon. Was there an atmosphere? Was there plant life? And so when the famous astronomer Schmidt discovered this crater that had disappeared, that was a fantastic justification for all the work they did. Next, Ken. Well, that process of looking for change meant you had to map smaller and smaller features. And Percy Wilkins' famous 300-inch map of the moon, I don't know if anybody ever saw the 300-inch. I know that ALPO has something online which says it's the 300-inch map, but I don't know if it really is. But the maps became more and more full of detail. And as you and Whitaker said, the addition of fictitious fine detail has so cluttered Wilkins' map that's virtually uninterpretable. In other words, we looked for changes that were only based on what we had made drawings of. And drawings are amazingly imprecise, even for the best artists, graphic artists. They're imprecise because the moon's look changes every time the sun angle changes, which is constantly. So there was no really documented case that a transient phenomena had really occurred on the moon. Next, Ken. Well, in searching for these tiny changes, what happened was that almost everybody who studied the moon missed the biggest things happening, the biggest things that ever happened in the moon, the impact basins. And when I say everybody who studied the moon, pretty much no professional astronomers studied the moon after Julius Schmidt and a few people before him in the 1800s. And the astronomers who studied the stars and galaxies, they discovered spectroscopy. They discovered ways to find out about everything else in the universe except the solar system. And so the solar system was pretty much left to amateur astronomers. But in 1949, Ralph Baldwin, who died, 10 years ago, 8 years ago, he wrote a book called The Face of the Moon, which was the first modern book about the moon. And he pointed out that what we called Imbrium, which was the lava flow that stretched across this large expanse, and Nectaris, which is the name of the small lava flow in the middle of the picture we're looking at right now, he recognized that those were craters. Those were the biggest craters on the moon. And Bill Hartmann and Gerard Kuiper in 1962 further studied these things, and Bill gave them the name basins and recognized that they were a totally new type of lunar landform that, other than Baldwin, basically nobody had recognized before. And he and Kuiper published papers and discovered more, and Bill and I also did that as well. Next. I introduced Bill Hartmann to both of his wives. That's my claim to fame. In this 1962 paper, Bill summarized what they had found out about basins, and that there were giant impact structures, what happened to craters when they got larger than a couple hundred kilometers. And they had multiple rings. You can see this is the illustration they published in their 1962 paper. I remember when that came out, I was working with them at that time. You have multiple concentric rings shown in red. There's the Nectaris one on the sort of right near the bottom side, and Imbrium is the top left, and Chrysium is on the right side in the middle. So there were these large crater basins, bigger than anything we'd ever considered to be a crater before. Multiple rings. The slopes on the inside of these rings were very steep. They were scarps, faulting had occurred, and the slopes on the outer side were gentle, and they went away slowly. So they observed that. There were features that were radial, that were linear away from these round basins. The basins were depressed in the center. We didn't know how much then, but now with the GRAIL data, with the LOLA data that provides fantastic altimetry for the moon, we know now that the basins are typically a couple of kilometers below the surrounding level to 9 or 10 kilometers below, depending on which basin. So they're very much depressed in the center. They're flooded. Many of them, the ones we saw on the near side of the moon, are flooded with dark material, which Ralph Baldwin had proposed was lava. And in that lava, there are these mare ridges, we called wrinkle ridges, and rills, which we'll see some a little bit from now. And these were concentric fractures. That's what they recognized, that the rills were concentric fractures around these depressed crater floors. And these things, unlike big impact craters, they had no central mountains. So the central mountains were replaced by a series of rings. And if you know the moon and you look at the top left of this image, there's the Imbrium Basin, the biggest basin on the near side of the moon. And on the right-hand side of that, you can see a white ringed crater called Archimedes. And Gene Shoemaker recognized that Archimedes wasn't formed immediately. It wasn't formed the same time the basin occurred. In fact, it was formed after the basin, obviously, since it's inside it. And the impact occurred and made a crater. But then lava flows, Mare Imbrium lava flows, came and surrounded Archimedes. So he was the first one to figure out there was an interval of time, which we now know was perhaps hundreds of millions of years in some cases, between when the basin formed and when subsequent mare lavas occurred. Next. Well, the sequence of morphology changes from small craters to basins is illustrated here. And by the way, there's a professional astronomer called Nemo who has online his illustrations, his PowerPoint illustrations for a class he teaches, a senior level, graduate level class on planetary astronomy. And it's an excellent class. And that's where I got this illustration from. The craters above a few hundred meters in diameter, up to about 15 kilometers in diameter, are simple bowl-shaped features. They could have been turned out on a lathe, one after another. In fact, the estimate is that there's more than 1 million craters on the moon that are a kilometer in size or larger. And of that million craters, probably 990 of them are small, simple craters like this. No central peak, no terrace walls. And then as you get to larger diameters, the 15 kilometers to a couple hundred kilometers, the hole that's made by the impact that came in and hit the surface of the moon excavated a large area, 2,000 kilometers apart across. And suddenly there were rocks all around that had nothing inside holding them up. And so they had large fractures all around a circle of the original transient cavity that was made by the impact, and terraces formed by the side walls moving in, collapsing inwards along faults that curved like that. And so the original diameter of the crater was increased by about 25% by this faulting that enlarged it. And as the shock wave progressed down through the target rocks, it basically rebounded up, the rocks rebounded up and made central peaks. So central peaks are from the deepest part of the target area where the crater was formed. Well, that's the way hundreds of craters are, thousands, until you get to about 300 kilometers diameter. And then there's two examples on the moon where there's a central mountain, a central peak, and it's surrounded by a peak ring like that. And Bill and I gave the name peak ring to that type of craters. And then after those two, the central mountain's gone forevermore in larger sizes. And so somehow the central peaks of craters are transmogrified, which is a wonderful word. It sort of suggests we don't know what's happening. And that was the case for many decades. The central peak somehow grows into a ring of mountains. And then at larger diameters, typically above 500 kilometers or so, the cavity in the ground is so large that there are more and more fractures as the ground slides down into the hole that's been made. And so those are the multi-ring basins. And that's the picture of Orientale, which is about 1,000 kilometers across. And we can just see the edge of it from Earth. Next. So as the energy increases from the impact, as the projectile size gets bigger, as the velocity gets bigger, the holes that are produced in the ground change their morphology. And really there's just 3 or 4 morphologies: simple craters, complex craters like Copernicus, and then the transition to the multi-ring basins, the basins with the rings. So on this nice picture, and by the way, I originally put together some of these slides for a talk I gave in England. So you might notice that I have the photographer was typically somebody in England, or sometimes in the US, like Jim Phillips. There's a simple crater in the upper right. Simple craters are everywhere. They're bowl-shaped. They're not very interesting. But when you get the 100-kilometer wide crater like Copernicus, then you can see the individual terraces where separate faults cause the displaced rocks to slide down. And as they slid down, they met in the center, and they kept the crater from being much shallower than a simple crater is. A simple crater's depth is about 25% of its diameter. So Copernicus, though, depth is about 3%, 4% of its diameter. So large impact craters are much shallower for their depth, and they're full of stuff. And if you look at this picture of Copernicus, the bottom left quadrant is much smoother. Well, it turns out we finally found out, we used to think that was lava flows. We finally found out that that smooth part is impact melt. The energy of the colliding projectile is so great that some rocks are just totally vaporized and melted. And some of them are splashed out beyond the crater rim, and others go straight up and come back down. And that's what happened to these. That's what produced these. So terraces, the central mountains, shallowness. And if you look all around the rim of Copernicus, there's a deep deposit of ejecta. The material that was previously inside is now outside surrounding it. And as you go radially away, instead of being continuous ejecta, it becomes discontinuous. And you see some crater chains here at this place near Copernicus. And further away, the chains become more long, extensive, and greater spaces between craters, and you get bright rays. So we've all seen and love large complex impact craters like that. I almost pushed the button for the next slide. Ken? Well, and then you jump up to Orientale, a big basin, about 1,000 kilometers wide. And as I said, as Bill Hartman said in 1962, no central peak, no terraces, deep, Mare lavas in the center. And for the case of Orientale Basin, the ejecta scales up to be much larger than it was for any normal crater. And secondary craters we'll see, and the question is, are there rays? Do basins have rays that we can still detect? Next, Ken. Well, here's another illustration from Nemo, the guy who has this wonderful website. And the stages of crater formation, there's a couple of stages. First, there's the contact where the projectile hits it and it's destroyed. And second is excavation. And third is what modification. So the impactor is destroyed. High velocity has caused shock waves to propagate downward into the target area of the moon and backwards through the back of the projectile. And the shock waves cause particles of the lunar surface to move up and down. As I say down there in the almost next to the bottom, they cause the excavation stage to occur, and to instantaneously, within minutes, to remove gigatons of rock that had been firmly in place up until a few seconds earlier. The rims of impact craters, I don't know if you happen to notice, they're tilted up like that because the ground that was not directly impacted outside it, the surrounding of it, it responds by tilting upwards like that. And about half of the height of a rim of an impact crater or of an impact basin is due to the rebound of the surrounding ground. And the other half of the height is ejecta that falls back down on it. So the excavation stage happened in a few minutes, and then over a few hours is the modification. That's where the bigger holes, transient cavities that are produced by an impact, collapse, and concentric fractures form all around, and the rocks slide in, the flora gets elevated, and central peaks are produced. That's for impact craters. Next, Ken. The story is much more complex for basins, and we had 40 or 50 years where we really didn't understand completely what happens. Now, because of the ability to run massive computer codes that can mathematically explore how explosions occur, we have much better models that seem to fit what we observe. The top of this blue zone in the top picture is the transient cavity. That's the area that's been excavated by the impact. And the blue zone beyond the transient cavity, that's the area where the rocks have been compressed and pushed down. They've just been pushed down out of the way. And the green area is surrounding the impact melt that's totally melted or vaporized. And the green area is where the shock pressure was so high, all the mineral structures collapsed and were deformed, but it didn't melt. It wasn't high enough to melt. So apparently what happens is because the area of impact melt is so large on basins, it's not just large because basins are bigger than craters, it grows progressively larger in a percentage as you go from a small 100-kilometer wide crater to a 500-kilometer wide basin. That the green part comes up, is pushed up the sides and becomes the peak rings that we see on the insides of basins. The mantle has been pushed down, the crust has been pushed down into the mantle, it springs back up, and mantle rocks, molten mantle rocks, move up to near the surface. And when you hear about a mass con that Tony mentioned yesterday, mass anomalies, concentrations, it's because of the lava flows that are on the top of the basin after it's finally finished, and the uprise of the mantle, dense rocks. So, and there's more of this. As I say, it's very complex. We've just been finding out how it really works. Next. So each of these different processes that we saw on impact craters and in basins affects the surface. And what I want to get at in this talk is that impact basins make a large majority of all the surface features that you see. In fact, I'm thinking of writing another moon book that would be based on looking at the moon from the point of view of what did basins do to cause these landforms. So first thing is that when you have a projectile coming and hitting the target, it erases, it just totally destroys whatever was there. And then the shock waves propagate through and it moves matter up and down. The high energy from the velocity of the impact causes the melting and vaporization I've mentioned. The hole is created, an ejecta, all the rocks that were previously in that part of the moon are thrown out. Some of it undoubtedly, for every time a basin formed, there would be meteorites of moon rocks falling on the earth. Unfortunately, the last basin formed about 3.9 billion years ago, and it's really hard to find lunar rocks that are 3.9 billion years old. And so the crater collapses, as we said, expanding its diameter, creating scarps, this modification phase. So let's look at all these things that happen on basins. Ken? Well, first of all, there are lots and lots of basins. I made a catalog in 2004 of about 80 or so of them. Some of them were real, and again, Tony mentioned this yesterday, the catalog. Some of them were not real. And these are about the 35 or 40 most prominent basins. This is about half of the number that we think probably exist on the moon. And they're everywhere. So their effects are going to be everywhere. Next. And what happens for each of these basins, they totally erase what was previously there. So we have all these holes in the moon where the surface rocks down to depths of many kilometers are gone. Next. And where those rocks go is they get spread all over the place. Here in the center of this picture, and this is from a paper that just came out in March by some Chinese people named Liu. And again, Tony showed one of the pictures from their paper yesterday. That's a tremendous place to go to start, because in their supplementary material, they have a catalog of all the basins where they've measured probably 20 different characteristics for each basin. It's the most exhaustive basin catalog that exists. So Imbrium is in the middle. If you put your thumb and forefinger together on the picture, you've covered the Imbrium basin. But all these yellow lines that go way out, that's where the ejecta has been mapped to be. That's where we can see it today, 3.8 billion years later. It probably went further. So the previous picture showed where the terrain was totally destroyed. This shows where the terrain has been covered, buried. Next. And this is a picture that Tony showed yesterday. This is, if you look at the biggest, most likely to be real basins, and I think there are about 65, 70 here, that's the part of the moon covered by ejecta from the basins. And then next, if you add to that the lava flows that erupted in the floors of the basins, those are shown by the blue, much more than 50% of the total surface area of the moon is covered by basins and their debris and the lava flows that came up, the fractures that they made. So almost any place we look on the moon, we're looking at some landscape that results from basins. And one of the other things that happens, you have an impact, especially an impact that makes a crater 1,000 kilometers across, you have massive moon-wide moonquakes. So everything that existed on the moon is going to be shaken immensely. So with the basin ejecta and lava flows, it's a lot more than 50%. But then when you include the seismic activity, every single piece of the lunar surface has been affected by basin formation. Next. Let's look at some of the ways in which the ejecta from the basin is displayed on the surface. The top left picture is the edge of Mare Orientale. And if you look at the crater near the top of that image that has a big shadow on it, that crater is Shaler, and it's 85 kilometers across. So you're looking at a big piece of the surface, and the main rim, the Cordillera rim of the Orientale Basin is underneath Shaler, and everything to the bottom right of that picture is the continuous ejecta from Orientale Basin, which was probably 3.8 billion years ago. And that ejecta is a couple kilometers thick. So you can see some of the craters there you can still recognize because they're only partly covered by ejecta, and others are completely covered. And if you look at the image on the bottom left, that's another place where there's ejecta, this time from the Imbrium Basin. And this is looking north of Mare Frigoris, north of Imbrium. And this is a place where there's lots of pre-existing pre-Imbrium craters that have had their walls destroyed. And what destroyed the walls was all this knobby, sort of rubbly material that fills those craters up. That's the type of ejecta that occurs and is in place further away when you're not right there on the very edge of the basin. And then the top right picture with all the green stuff, that is where ejecta has flowed across the surface, or it was ballistically impacted, and then it was still molten, and it flowed across the surface after ballistic deposition, and it filled the floors. And so if you look around Tycho on the near side of the moon, you can see all these flat floored craters that are very shallow. That's not lava flows. That was what we thought in the late 60s and early 70s. It's all basin ejecta. It's all stuff that's come out of Orientale and Imbrium and other bases, and probably ballistically emplaced, and then it was still hot and it just flowed. And the thing that shows up really well in this picture of the ejecta around Orientale at the top right is so much of it's filling the crater chains. So there are crater chains we saw around Copernicus, and there are crater chains around all the basins. And you can see that that ejecta goes about halfway around the circumference of the moon, of the moon. Next. And then here's another style of ejecta that's almost pasty. It flowed across the surface. You can see this surface I don't know if anybody knows the directions on the moon other than Tony and me, but it flowed across the surface to the southeast, and it just smoothed the surface. In some cases, it took jagged landscape of terraces and just smoothed them out like you had plaster putting on a wall and covering up the rough spots. So, and if you look at the top left corner, there's 3 or 4 overlapping craters that have had their common walls destroyed, and then they were later filled with lavas from the nearby lava flows. Those are secondary crater chains. If you look over the big crater in the bottom right, it's Julius Caesar, about, as it says, 85 kilometers wide. And above that, there's some other parts of crater chains. So large crater chains, 20, 30 kilometers across, exist around each of the basins. Next. And then the grooves. Imbrium is famous. It was discovered by Carl Gilbert in 1893. He noticed this. He was using the Naval Observatory telescope in Washington, D.C. He looked at the moon for 1 month, every night for the month, and he wrote an 1893 paper about the moon's surface and what caused features. That was probably the best paper for 50 or 60 years, but nobody read it. It was published in a journal that astronomers didn't read. Geologists didn't study the moon at all back then. So his paper was missed. But these long grooves and gashes that occur, that's where mountain-sized particles hit the moon surface at low angles and just cut their way through the surface. There's hundreds and hundreds of them all around Mare Imbrium. Next. And then ejecta. We talked about Copernicus, and every impact crater has ejecta. This is a piece of one of the Mare regions on the moon. Can anybody recognize what that Mare region is? I'll tell you. It's Mare Fecunditatis. And you can tell that because the 2 craters, small craters on the left side, the bottom half, have the railway parallel rays coming down. And the name of that just escaped me. Those are famous craters that everybody looks at the moon sees. Well, you can see their rays every single place covering this Mare, just a few spots that are still dark. So every place on the moon was covered by rays from impact craters. And the rays cover the highlands, but the highlands are made of a different type of rock. They're not dark minerals like the lava flows are. They're bright, and so we don't see the rays typically in the highlands. Next. So this is what crater rays look like, and this is what basin rays look like. Nobody knew this until 2008 using radar. Some people I know, here's Orientale Basin over on the left. They mapped the radar reflectivity, which depends upon the particle size. And there's an area that's smooth around the Orientale Basin on the left-hand side. And that's got heavy concentrations of ejecta. But then you can see smooth lines that radiate out almost on the bottom right, almost all the way across this image of the moon. And those are basin rays. Nobody had ever seen them before. So the impact basins are like the craters. They have the same set of features, but everything is exaggerated. Next. And crater chains, the picture on the left is a famous Apollo 15 picture, I think, of Copernicus crater at the top and one of its rays, and the rays are full of secondary craters. The middle picture is a secondary crater chain from Orientale Basin. And those craters, one after the other, are about 15 kilometers across. So those are secondary craters that are 15 kilometers across. The secondary craters for Copernicus are typically 1 to 3 or 4 kilometers across. Much bigger basin, much more energy, much larger secondary craters. And then the picture on the right is, I don't know, 1,500 kilometers away from Imbrium. And there's a whole cluster of craters. They're about the same size. They're about 20 kilometers across. This is on Mare Fecunditatis on the east side of the moon. Those are probably secondary craters too. Excuse me. It was some big mountain that was ejected from the formation of Imbrium, and it broke apart and hit in a cluster. If you look over at Copernicus on their rays, you can see clusters of small craters where the same thing happened. A piece of ejecta broke apart and landed in about the same area and made craters a couple of kilometers apart. Craters all over the moon that we used to think were impact craters that have been modified, they're almost certainly secondary craters from basins. Next. And then we noticed by looking at various craters on the moon and experiments that NASA scientists did at Ames Research Laboratory near San Francisco, where they shot small projectiles down into targets at 15 kilometers a second impact as particles hit the moon. And when they made the particles come in at low angles, it turned out that the ejecta went downrange. The ejecta didn't spread uniformly in 360 degrees around. And in the area uprange is called a zone of avoidance. And it turns out that Tycho, here's a beautiful picture that a guy in Australia took. Most of these pictures that I've showed from people on Earth, they're all pictures that were donated, contributed to the Lunar Photo of the Day. So it's just wonderful to have so many. The zone of avoidance for Tycho is to the left. So the Tycho projectile came in at an angle, probably only about 15 degrees above horizontal, and it hit, and most of the ejecta went downrange to the right. And I suggest if we look at the picture we showed before of the ejecta from the Imbrium Basin, that's probably an oblique impact as well, because almost all the ejecta is to the right again, and you should point out, hey, don't pull a fast one on us. Look at all that lava flow from Oceanus Procellarum. There could well have been ejecta underneath there, buried. And you're absolutely right, there could have been, except when you look beyond the dark mare of Oceanus Procellarum, there's no ejecta there from Imbrium. So if you look how far the ejecta goes to the east, to the right, if it went the same distance to the left, we would detect some, and we don't. So there's been comments before that Imbrium may have been an oblique impact. Pete Schultz and some others believe that the Bay of Rainbows there, Sinus Iridum at the top left of Imbrium, may have been where the projectile first came in, a low angle ejecta projectile there. We're still investigating that. Next, please. And then the seismic shaking. Here's a beautiful picture of Tycho. This is a lunar reconnaissance orbiter camera picture. And there's Tycho, a beautiful crater formed about 800 million years ago, which is the youngest big crater on the moon. And the terrace walls and the impact, the central peak and the impact melt on the floor, they're all in pristine condition. But if you look at almost all the craters around, their once sharp rims have been rounded down. They're not deep anymore. They've been filled in with something. So seismic shaking and ejecta from impact basins, and definitely seismic shaking for these craters that are near Tycho from when Tycho formed, and ejecta from Tycho, goes to modify and degrade every crater on the moon. And the older the crater is, the longer the time it's had to be degraded. And I say seismic shaking and ejecta from basins, but also every crater, like I said, from Tycho, every crater causes moonquakes that causes material to move down slope. Next. And the other thing that happens when there's a crater formed or a basin formed is that the rocks are fractured. The rocks near the surface are excavated and melted and whatnot, but the rocks below that are deeply fractured. And Bill Hartman back in the 60s realized that there were so many old craters and basins that the lunar crust that going down kilometers, multiple kilometers, was probably seriously fractured. And there would be a mega regolith. And a mega regolith is a zone that's broken up, rocks broken up and made to pieces and moved around. And above that, we now know, well, we found out a long time ago in Apollo period that there's a regolith. The regolith is not as mega. The regolith is just a few tens of meters thick in the Mare and maybe 100 meters thick in the highlands. That's the dust that forms. That's the stuff that comes into the spacecraft when the astronauts come in out being outside. When you see footprints, or when John Young was testing a lunar rover and there was a rooster tail of dust, that's all bits of the regolith that are thrown up. That's a real hazard for being on the moon. It gets in everywhere. Next. And then let's look at the basins themselves and the structures that form. So to the left is Imbrium Basin, and that's one of Maurice Collins's visualizations of the topography data from Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. And Maurice is, I think, on the YouTube video. So hi, Maurice. He and I have worked together. We published a Moon Atlas in 2013, and we're working on more things now. So you can see there on the left-hand side, there's the main Apennine rim of the Imbrium Basin, and inside that there's a rim of wrinkle ridges. And if you look at the bottom here along the edge of Mare Frigoris, there's the curvature of the edge of ejecta looks like another ring there. And then Orientale, you can clearly see three different rings, the big one, the Cordilleras, and then the outer Rook and the inner Rook. So basins make these complex structures that I've been describing before, and they're beautiful pictures right here. Next. And then the basins create these giant fault scarps that go down that allow the terraces, the mega terraces, to slide down on the basins. And you can tell those basins are faults because if you look at the right-hand image of a close-up of Orientale, you can see that those young lava flows, dark lava flows, are coming out right at the edge of those fault zones, of fault scarps. So the places where lava could reach the surface is where the faults go down deep to interact with where magma is. And that happens in the center where there's intense brecciation, fracturing, and it happens on the edges. And then K.C. Powell, who's just this amazing photographer who takes pictures with his 10-inch reflector from his balcony in Hong Kong. And he only has a small piece of the sky available that he makes these magnificent photos in. He's the first, I think the first one amateur to take photographs of these young lava flows on the moon, on Mare Imbrium. And when we say young, most of them are still around 3.5 to 2.5 billion years old. Some of them may be as young as 2 billion years. So they haven't been beaten down, the edges haven't been eroded away by small scale impacts. And so you can still see the flow edges of this large lava flow. Next. And then another thing that happens to basins is the lava is erupted, the Mare lava is erupted on the surface tens to a few 100 million years after the basin formed. It comes from down below, it erupts through fractures onto the surface and makes a pile of lava that's anywhere from 2 to maybe 5 kilometers thick. That's a heavy weight, and it solidifies, and that heavy weight pushes down on the basin floor, pushes the basin floor down, and the lava, the solidified lava that used to be in a space maybe 500 kilometers wide, as it goes down, it has to occupy a lesser diameter. maybe 400 kilometers. So inside where the lava fractures, so it could be a smaller space, one piece of the solid lava flow goes under it, a low angle fault, and that produces the wrinkle ridges. We used to think, Bill Hartman and I published in 71, that the wrinkle ridges could be faults and they could be lava flows. We haven't seen a lava flow come out of a wrinkle ridge anywhere. Even the lava flows I showed you before didn't come from the wrinkle ridge. And then if you look at this wonderful picture that Stefan Lamel sent from England 10 years ago, on the right-hand side of it, you see this parallel fractures, rills, concentric rills. And that's where, when the basin subsided, the solid lava flow had to move fast, and it had to bend, and it fractured. Let's go to the next one now. And here's a map from LRO of all the lunar surface except the polar regions, and the dark lavas show up very well. And what you see is that almost all the lava flows occur on the near side of the moon. The center 2/3 of this image is the near side, and the 1/4 piece on both right and left edges, that's the far side. The far side has at the top right Moscoviense, Mare Moscoviense, the Sea of Moscow, and on the left side, just near the near side is Orientale. Those are the two largest lava flows on the far side. There are some more inside the South Pole Aitken Basin. That's a basin that's the largest one on the moon, about 2,500 kilometers across. And if you look at the bottom left corner, you can see about 1/4 of it. In the bottom right corner, you see another less than 1/4. And so we say the impact basins on the near side are wet. They're full of lava. They're full of Mare lava flows. And most of the impact basins on the far side are not. They're dry. What's the difference? Well, there's two reasons. Next. This is a map also from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter of the crustal thickness, and Tony showed a map like this yesterday. And the red and the white are the thick parts of the crust, 40 to 50 kilometers thick. And the green and especially the blue are the thin crust. And if you look over and, well, I don't know, if you count the number of blue circles from the right side, there's 1, 2, 3, 4. The fourth one is Mare Crisium. Mare Crisium is this beautiful basin. We see it has very few impact craters on it. The crust under Mare Crisium is only 5 kilometers deep. You know, you could drill a hole through to the mantle of the moon there. So the near side of the moon has a very shallow, thin crust. The far side of the crust is 2 to 10 times as thick. And so even if there was the same quantity of magma below the surface, it would have to penetrate through a much thicker crust on the far side. And next. And this is just when the lava flows erupt. We landed on Apollo 11, 12, 14, 15, and 17 on lava flows. And so we have samples of the ages of 5 lava flows on the moon, and the Russians landed in Crisium. So we got their couple samples. And then just recently, the Chinese landed and we got a 2 billion year old age for lava flows near Aristarchus. But if you look at the histogram at the bottom right here, you see almost all the lava flows whose ages we determined by counting in number of impact craters per unit area on them, calibrated by the lava flows we've actually brought back and dated. Almost all the lunar volcanic activity was been between about 3.8 billion years and 3.3 billion years. And then it dribbled out to 2 billion years. We now have a firm date from the Chinese samples. And from crater counting, we think very small amounts of lava flows 1 billion years ago. So the heat engine that drove melting of the lunar interior mostly turned off by about 2.5 billion years ago, except in a few places it continued. And that's a real question now, why? what caused it to continue. Next. So when did the basins form? 88, 40, whatever the number of basins is, they all formed before 3.8 billion years ago. And here's sort of a chronological sequence from the oldest to the youngest for some of the basins you know. The South Pole Aitken is the oldest one. And then Fecunditatis, I've mentioned, Nubian, Smithy, those are all old basins. Nectaris is middle-aged, Serenitatis is younger, but it's been in a bad position. It's been right next to Mare Imbrium. And when the Imbrium basin formed, it really very instantaneously degraded what's left of Serenitatis. Humorum, we saw some pictures of, Chrysium, Imbrium, those are all the young ones. And then Imbrium and Orientale 3.8 about. So that's when all the big action, all the major changes in lunar history that affected the surface we see today happened then. Next. So if all the basins formed by 3.8, we can't blame the basins for anything that happened after that. Anything has an asterisk with it. All the impact craters like Tycho and Copernicus and almost any other impact crater that's got rays that looks fresh, the basins did not influence them at all. But the lava flows that are younger than the basins, like this new 2 billion year old one and others, all those lava flows only reach the surface of the moon because the basins that were formed maybe 1 billion or 2 billion years before then, those basins made the fractures that provided the conduit for lava to reach the surface. This is a picture about 200 kilometers across here of the center part of Mare Nectaris. And there's one crater, Ross, down here, that's, I think, as I recall, 6 or 7 kilometers wide. And almost all the other craters on there are secondary craters from Theophilus. So for the last 3.9 billion years, that's how old the lava flows are there. There have been almost no craters formed. The rate of crater formation was 1,000 times higher in the first 500 million years of the moon's history than it was any time since then. So almost everything we see on the moon formed ancient at the time the basins did. Next. Now, an explanation that's just come out, it was just published in spring of this year, talks about how the formation of SPA, the South Pole Aitken Basin, how it totally reorganized the way the moon works as a world. And this is one of Maurice Collins in New Zealand, another one of his images where he took the topography data from the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter and visualized it and put colors on. So you can see up at the top is yellow and red, thick crust. Down at the bottom is on the near side, and you can see some bluer crust there. In the basin itself, 9 kilometers deep, is the biggest low spot on the far side of the moon. Next. The exciting thing that came out just a couple months ago is that there's this big asymmetry on the near side and the front side. The near side, the image on the left in the center there, the blue image shows how much thorium there is. Thorium is sort of a tracer for other important rare radioactive materials on the moon. The yellow and the red are where thorium is the most intense on the moon, and that's where Mare Imbrium is. That's where Humorum is. So the moon has most of its volcanism right there where there's an excess of radioactive elements. They provided heating that the rest of the moon, if you look at the far side of the moon, the rest of the moon has a very low amount of thorium. There just wasn't the same amount of heating of the crust of the moon on the near side and the far side. So the paper that just came out has more of these mathematical models. And if you look at the diagram on the right-hand side, there's a black dot coming in at the top of each one of these. There's a step through of them. And that's a projectile hitting to form the South Pole Aitken Basin. And the gray the gray series of illustrations is just the general interior of the moon, and the purple edge to it is the surface part of the moon that presumably when the moon formed and totally melted, this layer that we call the creep, that's what the layer is on the left side with the yellow and the red, this radioactive rich stuff. We believe that was concentrated all around the moon, but the impact that caused this largest basin on the moon caused that surface layer to move all around the moon in every direction to flee away from the energy of that impact. And it concentrated and froze and formed the crust of the near side of the moon, and in particular where the yellow and the red is. And the series of 4 circles on the right, that shows how the heat was transported through the moon, and the whole moon warmed up from that. And that warming of the entire moon, according to this brand new theory, allowed this radioactive rich crustal layer to concentrate on the other side. So this is brand new. We've known about the concentration of radioactive elements. We've known about them for 20 years, but nobody had an explanation. So here's a new explanation, which may or may not be right, but it counts for lots of neat things. Next. All right, what can we thank basins for? First of all, the near side of the moon, which has all these basins with lava flow in it, is intensely more interesting than the far side of the moon. And if you look at the 2 diagrams at the bottom is a full view of the far side of the moon, and there's almost no lava flow, and it's nothing but impact craters. It's nothing but craters on tops of craters on tops of craters. And I love craters, but my God, they're boring when there's nothing else. And on the left side, we have a picture of Archimedes, and it's got lava flows inside it that come up fractures. It's surrounded by lava flows. There's mountains there. There's a variety of ways in which impacting has interacted with lava. So the South Pole Lake and Basin concentrated all this radioactive material on the near side of the moon. So we have all these beautiful lava flows with the wrinkle ridges that Alberto was looking at. The mountain ranges when the basins formed that threw up the Apennine Mountains and the Altai Mountains, forming these beautiful, the largest mountain ranges on the moon. Fractures the crust so that lava could reach the surface. So we have impact basins, and in particular, the biggest one to thank for making the moon the most fascinating object in the night sky. I think that's the last slide, isn't it? Well, the moon will never be the same, I hope, after what you've heard today. In the next slide, keep observing. And this picture up there is from Maurice again. So he and I are partners on our research. So I thank Maurice for a number of these slides. I'll be happy to take any questions if anybody's still awake.
No, you've done good.
I don't know. Every time I see those crater chains, I get really excited about that. You know, imagining what that event looked like as it happened. You know, so
you wouldn't want to be anywhere nearby.
No, but
probably even on Earth, you're likely to get hit by debris.
It would be incredible, really. It's just amazing.
Why are some things arbitrarily called ocean of and others are called sea of?
Yeah, Procellarum is the largest smooth area on the moon. And so when in the 1600s, when people were mapping the moon for the first time and assigning names, some of them thought Galileo knew it wasn't true, but other ones who followed him thought that those were oceans. And so they named the smaller ones, the ones that were contained, seas. And there was this one big thing that wasn't readily contained in mountains, and they called that an ocean.
Okay. By the way, I can speak from experience in, you mentioned at the beginning of your talk, a book called Epic Moon.
Yep.
And I have that. And, you know, it's kind of a fast read. And it's so interesting to see the history of the beginning of mapping of the moon in that book.
Yeah.
I highly recommend it.
I agree. Bill Sheehan and Oh gosh, who's the co-author? I know him. I can't remember, but yeah, it's an excellent book. And then Ewan Whitaker's book, Mapping and Naming the Moon, is excellent also to go over that history.
Chuck, in defense of small stuff, I've been teaching people that to image smaller and smaller for the simple reason that there's at least 3 out of 5 nations that are going back to the moon that intend to stay, and they're going to start digging holes.
Yeah.
And in processing materials. And if you want to see that, you've got to hone your skills for seeing the small stuff now. And that's the defense I have for imaging small things.
I totally agree with you. When I said for a long time observers overlooked the big stuff, the most important stuff, we didn't pay attention to it, we didn't see it. But that doesn't mean we should neglect everything else. The photographs that so many people are taking, amateurs are taking of the moon now, sometimes you can't tell if they're, taken by a spacecraft or if they're taken by somebody on the Earth with an 8-inch or a 12-inch telescope. It's just marvelous.
It's like the images of planets. The images of planets that are coming out of amateurs now are equivalent to the pioneer images.
And better, I would say, yeah.
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 Right.
I have a question about mascons. Okay. Used to be that the astronauts would talk about passing over mascons and they would feel the gravitational effect of the mascon when they were going around the moon. And it was attributed to iron nickel asteroids that were buried in that, or that was that mascon. So if that's not true, what is that? Basalt or?
It's basalt, yeah.
Okay.
It's the asteroids that came in and hit and made these big basins. They were totally destroyed, and fragments of them, pieces of them were scattered everywhere. So there's not a concentration of them anywhere that would cause that sort of mascon. The mascons that, again, we have models, and variety of teams make different models, and after a while they all seem to converge on the same explanations. We're pretty sure now it's the lava flows that are on the surface. If you have a 4-kilometer thickness of lava flow that's right on the surface, if the spacecraft's flying 50 kilometers above it, that's a large gravitational attraction compared to the low density rocks outside of that. And then also, that's not enough to explain the mascon. We think from the cratering theories and the diagram I showed you and whatnot, that the mantle rose up underneath these basins. And now with the Grail spacecraft that mapped the gravity fields of the moon, we can beautifully see where the mascons are well defined inside basins. And it's the inner ring of Mare ridges, which shows you exactly where the mascon rose up, and that defines the transient cavity, the initial hole that was made by the impact. We've learned so much about the moon in the last 10 years, starting longer than that, starting with Kaguya, the Japanese spacecraft, and then the Lunar Reconnaissance Orbiter. We used to think we knew so much, and we did compared to people a generation before, but now we've learned so much more. It's overwhelming, but I love it.
Well, all this stuff that happened to the moon happened to the proto-Earth too.
Yep.
And so what does that say about what we know about the Earth?
Well, I like to say that that the moon is the Smithsonian institution of the solar system. we have the Earth, which is this big dynamic planet. The average age of the surface of the Earth is 500 million years, because the 70% of the Earth is covered by ocean floors whose average age is something like 150 million years. So you take all the 70% ocean floors that are young and the 30% of continents that only in rare places did they go back 3.9 billion years, even though we existed before then. Those rocks have been destroyed. Our average age is 500,000 years, which incidentally is the average age of Venus, and it's the average age of Titan, satellite's moon Titan.
Wow.
So the moon preserves its history. we talk about almost a billion year crater like Tycho as being young. I'm sorry, that's 100 million years is young. Copernicus is a billion, that's young. We have 3.9 billion year old rocks everywhere in the moon. So the moon tells us just as you said, Rick, the moon tells us what the Earth must have gone through, but that's all been erased by plate tectonics on the Earth. It's all been erased by ocean formation and destruction.
Weather. And weather.
Yeah, and weather. We need both.
And a question related to that, since the early bombardment 3.8 billion years ago, have there been periodic multiple impacts as the moon and the Earth system goes around the galaxy?
Yeah, there's been discussions of that, not so much based on the moon data because we don't have enough ages for the craters, but that's one of the things that has been listed as a goal for when we go back to the moon and we have people on the moon collecting lots of samples. Can we tell where the solar system went through the ring plane of the galaxies every 250 million years? On the Earth, there's some evidence on clumping of ages of impact craters, but we don't have enough impact craters to have a very statistically reliable sample. And it's interesting, the Chicxulub impact 65 million years ago, that was really, really young.
Yes,
that made a crater on the Earth 100, 120 kilometers wide, something like that.
Right.
No crater on the moon in the last 65 million years has been made anywhere near that size. So there are these random, rare events that are big.
Right.
Okay, I'm going to interject here. I think Tim and we're going to get going here.
Oh yeah, you got to give away prizes. That's why people stay.
Prizes, but I want to. There's your Atlas to the Moon from Sean Nagel there. I would like to also mention, if you really want a simple theory of what's going on the moon, and this is meant in jest, I like science fiction. Most science fiction isn't that great, but there is a great movie that came out that's got great special effects, and I don't know if it's plausible, but you can stream it. It's called Moonfall. So check it out. And even if it's not necessarily so, it's a good movie, Moonfall. So anyway, I guess that's it for me. So I'm going to turn it over to Tim.
All right. Thanks, Ken. Thanks, Chuck. It was excellent talk. A lot of great comments in chat as well. And what we'll do after we have door prizes is if people want to stay on, I'll leave the Zoom link open. So if you want to still talk with other people as well, we'll leave it open for a little while. All right. Okay. So what we're going to do, we're going to start off because I invited Scott here under false pretenses. Not really, because they Explore Scientific donated some very cool things. So everybody has an opportunity to win. We're going to do those first. How's that sound?
That's great.
All right. So Scott, which item do you want to begin with?
A favorite eyepiece of mine is the 8.8 millimeter 82 degree eyepiece. It's got great magnification, 82 degree apparent field of view. It's sharp. It's a sharp eyepiece. It's waterproof. One of the things I'll say about my eyepiece is I actually keep on my desk. I don't know if you guys can see this. This looks very strange, right? Explore Scientific eyepieces are covered under a forever, no fault, transferable warranty. And so that means if your house burnt down to the ground and you could pick the smoldering remains of the eye, you have to register it with that. So if you could pick the smoldering remains of your eyepiece out of the ashes and return it to me, we will replace it.
This includes meteoritic impact?
Yeah, especially that, but I get to keep it. You gotta send it to me. So there's still a meteor in it. I absolutely want it. So this gentleman, these two eyepieces, what are left of the Explore Scientific eyepieces here, were recovered from the Paradise, California fire. An amateur astronomer lost his house, lost all of his astronomy gear, lost everything. But he did indeed send these two back to me, and I did indeed send him brand new eyepieces. So
Richard Berry?
it was not Richard Berry. I know that that did happen to him too, but
Richard's in
yeah.
Oregon.
Yeah, but unfortunately, I know a few people who've lost their homes at various times, you know, due to fires and stuff. Some of my friends like to live in mountains, and you know, there's always a chance of forest fire in you know, a lot of the mountain ranges. So, anyhow, a tragedy, but you know, we do stand behind the product, and so whoever wins this needs to register them.
All right.
So,
all right. Well, I've got everybody's email address inside this bowl
oh, you're
here.
all right.
And so what I'm
Good.
going to do is reach inside and grab someone's email address. And if they're not here, I'll drop them an email. Eyepiece goes to Dan Ward.
All right, Dan Ward.
Dan Ward. Yeah.
Congratulations.
Yeah. All right.
Write that down.
Okay. It's over there. What's next, Scott?
A couple of years ago, we started working on a tent to just something that could pop up, was easy to set up for someone going to a star party, to keep the wind off of them, to maybe protect the equipment a little bit. So we created this 2-room observatory tent, and you know, you can have an area for your computer.
I don't know if you can see it. No, you can't see it.
Can't see it. Yeah, black on black does.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
It's black anyway, so it's got blackout material. It just pops up, and you know, it's real fast to set up. You can set it up and like, there you go. It sets up in 5 minutes. It comes with you know, the you know, more simple lines to secure it down, but in winds, I have secured it down with like straps that you might strap down the back of your pickup truck with, and that seems to work better, and really does keep you know, does a good job in fairly strong wind, and it's just a nice setup. It's good for scopes that are maybe, let's say, an 8-inch or 10-inch, maybe even an 11-inch Mikasa grain, all the way down to, you know, some smaller refractors, you know, 6 inches or less. And it's just a really comfortable little environment. So fast to set up, fast to tear down. And so it's just kind of I thought it was more or less a practical move. I didn't know if people would really like it or not, but we continue to sell out every time I get new inventory, and so it works out okay.
Yeah, I think Rick did a review of one, didn't
Yeah.
you? Yeah.
Yeah, can it be set up by one person or?
Yes, it can, but with practice. I recommend 2 people.
It's not really a sleeper, more so it's a 2-room office.
That's right. There is you do get a tarp that goes over the whole thing in case it rains, you know, that kind of thing. So could you sleep in it? Sure. You know, are there better sleeper tents? Of course.
All right. Who gets the tent?
Dun, dun, dun.
Dun, dun, dun. Matthew Benton.
All right, Matthew.
Yeah.
Matthew probably has a 24-inch or 2-meter telescope at home.
Is he local still?
How many members does the Association of Lunar and Planetary Observers have today?
Right around 400.
400. Oh, that's significant.
Yep. All right, and the last one. Oh.
The last one. So it's a 32 millimeter eyepiece. Is that right?
Yep. 30 millimeter. I'm sorry.
30. Oh, 3082, right?
Yeah. Yep. 3082.
Now,
This
if
the
you
one
guys
that
go,
needs the counterweight.
Yeah, you need a
it is
counterweight.
a heavy eyepiece.
It is
okay?
a heavy. I'm
Yeah,
doing
you'll notice if you look at the box graphic designs were done by Will Tyrion, who did the Sky Atlas
I don't know if you can
2000.
see it. No, I can't see it.
Yeah, you can see it a little bit.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah.
So it's been a lot of fun working with Will Tyrion. He also did our planispheres. He made a planisphere which is double-sided for the Northern Hemisphere. So when you flip it around, it shows a south-facing view from the Northern Hemisphere without distortion. So it's kind of a cool thing. I'll send some down to you guys so that you can check it out.
Okay.
But the 30 millimeter eyepiece, if you search on cloudy nights, and there's been lots of, guys do eyepiece shootouts all the time. 30 millimeter gets favorable reviews on cloudy nights. I think you'll find that. This is also a difficult eyepiece for us to keep in stock. But it's great for looking at galaxies and nebulae and comets, and so I think you'll enjoy that eyepiece on almost any telescope you put it on.
What's the retail value of that?
That particular eyepiece, I should know these off the top of my head. I will give you.
$1,298.
Yeah. Yes.
About $500 on B&H.
I think it is. I think you're right.
I've shared.
8.8 was $230, and the observatory temp was like $250, something like that, and then the 30 millimeter. Yeah, absolutely. I think it is at $500.
Wow.
There it is, $499.
Okay.
I'm sharing.
Cool.
I'm sharing a view of the 30 millimeter right now.
Right. And it's
All right.
big because
Yeah.
it is made so rugged. It is.
Yeah, I'm
it is
surprised it's,
argon purged.
I'm surprised it's waterproof.
It's a 2-inch barrel.
When I came up with the idea, when I was doing our eyepieces, I said I had been out in Anza-Borrego State Park at a place I used to go out to a lot called Little Blair Valley, and my eyepieces that I owned at the time had all fogged up in the case. Now this was, and so I took the eyepieces out, and I dried them out and all the rest of it. But every once in a while, some of these eyepieces would still fog up if the conditions got right. Okay, and so I thought, well, there's waterproof binoculars, there's waterproof spotting scopes. Why aren't there waterproof eyepieces? Right? And so when I first introduced them, I got teased a lot. There was a thread on cloudy nights, and a guy said, yeah, I'll buy a waterproof eyepiece. I'll use a waterproof eyepiece from Explore Scientific the next time I'm observing from the bottom of my swimming pool. And then a thread came out where a guy, I won't mention the brand, okay, but a guy had some very expensive eyepieces and was observing in his backyard. And because he was just in his backyard, he left all of his gear out. Well, it rained, okay?
No.
And now all of his eyepieces have water inside of them, okay? And so we've had many funny stories, though. He was able to send them back to that manufacturer. They did clean them up and everything. So that was the deal. But we've had funny stories with people who put our eyepieces, and I don't recommend this, put it into a dishwasher with the heater turned off,
Probably very rarely that can happen, but I think the main purpose is that it prevents the dew form on the eyepiece. And that's what waterproof is. You're not going to, leave it out in the rain or drop in the pool or something like that. But I think it's mainly for like heavy dew that forms on the lenses and all.
And cleaning it. You can pour lens cleaning solution right on the lens without worry of it seeping through and around and getting in between the elements. So
all right, who wants it?
Fungus, mold, all that stuff out of there. So
not a problem in Tucson.
That's not a problem in Tucson. That's right. But
All
it
right.
is
It's a problem
at the
down
Winter
here in the
Star
soup of Louisiana. Let me tell you.
All right, here we go. Here we go. Here we go.
Yes,
They're
it is.
sticking. They're sticking together. Wait, let me grab one. Okay, I got one.
Put to hear the drums.
All right. There's no name, but the email address is jrbbama@gmail.
JRBBAMA.
Yep. Okay.
All right. Congratulations, JRBB.
All right. Well, Scott, I really want to thank you for your awesome donations.
Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. You guys have, I was asked why wasn't there a page linking back from the Explore Scientific website to the ALPO, and I can tell you at this moment right here, there is, and there's a blog about it on the homepage, and I also put links up on your YouTube channel about it. So thank you very much, guys. And, thanks for an amazing award. Thank you for making me think of my dear friend, Michael D. Reynolds, in such a special way. It was really incredible.
No,
it's got me a little choked up. Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. We appreciate it.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right.
Thanks.
All right.
Bye-bye.
All right. All right. We've got 3 more to give away. What's that? Don't leave yet. From Celestron, we have a Ultimate Edge 10mm flat field 60-degree eyepiece. Here we go. Matt Will. Hey, Matt, are you there? I see you.
Yeah, I'm here. Why don't you give that back? Because I've got plenty of eyepieces. I'd rather see another member get that.
You could give it to a kid.
I don't have any kids.
I didn't say you had to make more kids.
All right. That generous. Thank
one,
you,
Rick.
Matt.
Good one.
Thank you, Matt. All right. All right. Here we go. Brian Kudnick. Is Brian here?
I haven't seen it.
Oh, I thought he was on. Okay. Well, he gets it. All right. Then we got a Celestron Ultimate Edge 18mm flat field 65-degree eyepiece. That's going to John Nagel.
Hey, John. You here?
Yep.
Yes, I am. Thank you very much.
All right.
Appreciate it.
All right, we'll get that out to you. And the last one we have is a certificate from Bob's Knobs, collimation thumb screws. You get a free set of thumb screws for your telescope. And that's going to go to Larry Trutter. I saw Larry on here.
Larry, are you here?
He was on here. I saw him earlier. There he is. Hey, congratulations.
Congratulations, Larry. Larry's a neighbor of mine.
Oh, well, you could have given him the eyepiece.
Yeah, I guess I could have. Smart thinking on my part, Tim.
All right. Well, I want to thank all of you again for attending the conference and making it a very special couple days. I had a lot of fun being your host, and I hope I want to thank Ken Pachetli for stepping up and doing all the introductions, and the entire ALPO board for their continuous work in putting quality things out. So I'm going to leave the YouTube channel open. And if you guys want to stick around for a while, you're more than welcome to chat. But that's it for me. I'm going to go have a beer.
Thank you, Tim. Good job.
Great job, Tim.
All
You
right.
did a good thing there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Very nice.
Oh, hey, John Nagel, where are you? John,
Yes.
have you been to the Deep South No, wait, it was the Deep South Regional Stargaze, with Barry Simon.
I have been there once. That was the first time when he changed it from the Feliciana retreat to the White Horse retreat over the border from Bogalusa into Mississippi, which was one of the very pretty dark site out there. But I went to that first one he had there.
I remember going to it twice in the mid '90s when it was in Mississippi, just the other side of the line there. I think that town has the distinction of being where Britney Spears is from. What's that town?
That one I'm not sure of on there, but I did know
Anyway, it was at a state park. It was a great site